Admiral Jake Morrison stood quietly at the back of the meeting room on Kepler Prime Station. The room was filled with representatives from dozens of alien species, all talking loudly about trade routes and mining rights. Jake watched them with careful eyes, his hands clasped behind his back in the way all Earth military officers were taught. The station itself was impressive, Jake had to admit. The Altarians had built it well, with gleaming metal walls and artificial gravity that worked perfectly. But Jake knew something the aliens did not know. Human engineers had studied the station's design months ago and found 17 different ways to disable it completely. They kept this information to themselves. Of course, Dr. Lisa Carter sat at the human delegation table, taking notes on her tablet. She was Earth's best expert on alien cultures and had spent 15 years learning their languages and customs. Lisa looked frustrated, which was not unusual during these council meetings. The aliens rarely listened to human concerns. Zara Vel, the tall blue-skinned representative from the Altarian Empire, stood up to address the room. Her voice was loud and commanding, the way most Altarians spoke when they wanted to show their importance. The Council has received reports of increased pirate activity in the Outer Rim territories, Zara announced. These attacks are minor incidents that do not require major intervention. Local security forces should be sufficient to handle the problem. Jake felt his jaw tighten. He had read the reports about those minor incidents. 3 human cargo ships had been destroyed in the past month, with all crew members killed. The pirates were getting bolder and more violent with each attack. Lisa stood up from her seat. Representative Vel, with respect, these attacks are not minor. Human vessels have been specifically targeted, and the pirates are using military-grade weapons. This suggests they have backing from a larger organization. Several alien representatives made dismissive sounds. The Vorthan military commander, General Kethra, let out what sounded like alien laughter. His species looked like giant insects, with 4 arms and compound eyes that glittered in the station's artificial light. Dr. Carter, General Kethra, said in his clicking voice, "Perhaps humans should consider staying closer to your home systems if you cannot protect your own ships. The galaxy is dangerous for species that lack proper military strength." Jake watched Lisa's face turn red with anger, but she controlled herself well. That was something humans had learned to do very well over the past 40 years since first contact. They had learned to stay calm when aliens insulted them. "General, Earth's military capabilities are sufficient for our needs," Lisa replied carefully. "But we believe cooperation between species would be more effective than individual efforts." Zara Vel made a sound that was clearly meant to be mocking. "Human weapons are at least 50 years behind current galactic standards. Your ships are slow and poorly armed. Cooperation requires that all parties bring something useful to the arrangement." Other alien representatives nodded in agreement. They had all seen human military vessels during joint exercises and diplomatic missions. The human ships looked basic and underpowered compared to alien technology. What they did not know was that those ships were operating under strict limitations. Jake knew the real numbers. Every human warship in space was running at less than 30% of its actual capability. Their weapons were powered down, their engines restricted, and their most advanced systems completely hidden. This was all part of Protocol 7, established by Earth's government decades ago. The decision to hide humanity's true strength had been controversial at first. Many military leaders wanted to show their power immediately after first contact, but wiser voices had prevailed. Earth's leaders understood that revealing their capabilities too early might start a galactic war before humanity was ready. Dr. Carter tried again. "Representatives, I must stress that humanity has been deliberately restraining our military responses to maintain galactic stability. We believe that peaceful cooperation serves everyone's interests better than an arms race." Room fell silent for a moment. Then General Kethra began making that clicking sound again, which Jake recognized as Vorthan laughter. Dr. Carter, are you suggesting that humans have been hiding superior military technology? The general asked. This is either a desperate bluff or simple delusion. Other aliens joined in the mocking sounds. The crystalline delegate's body actually changed color, which Jake knew meant extreme amusement in their species. Even the normally polite Aquarian representative was making soft whistling sounds of disbelief. Lisa looked directly at Jake, her eyes asking a silent question. Jake gave a barely visible shake of his head. Not yet. The orders from Earth were clear. Maintain the peaceful facade as long as possible. I am simply stating that humanity prefers diplomatic solutions, Lisa said finally. But we will protect our people and our interests when necessary. Zaravel stood up again, her blue skin seeming to shimmer with satisfaction. Dr. Carter, empty threats do not become more convincing through repetition. Perhaps humans should focus on improving their actual capabilities rather than making claims about hidden strengths. The meeting continued for another hour, but nothing changed. The Galactic Council voted to classify the pirate attacks as minor regional disturbances, requiring only local security responses. No military assistance would be provided. No investigation would be launched. Jake watched the alien representatives file out of the meeting room, talking and laughing among themselves. They seemed very pleased with themselves, very confident in their understanding of galactic politics. Doctor Carter packed her tablets and notes with sharp, angry movements. When the room was finally empty, except for the two humans, she turned to Jake. How long do we keep playing this game? She asked quietly. Jake looked out through the station's large windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, pirates were planning their next attack on human ships. Somewhere else, alien military commanders were dismissing humanity as weak and irrelevant. Until Earth decides we don't have to anymore, Jake answered. Lisa nodded, but Jake could see the frustration still burning in her eyes. She had spent years trying to build bridges between humanity and the other species. She had learned their languages, studied their cultures, and worked to find common ground. In return, she received mockery and dismissal. As they walked toward the docking bay where their shuttle waited, Jake thought about the orders sealed in his personal safe back on Earth. Protocol 7 had been written by the smartest military minds humanity had ever produced. It contained detailed plans for revealing Earth's true capabilities when the time came. Jake hoped the time would never come, but he was beginning to suspect it would come sooner than anyone wanted. Captain Ben Hayes was eating breakfast with his family when the emergency alert came through his communicator. The sound was sharp and urgent, cutting through the peaceful morning air of New Denver Colony. His wife Mary looked up from her coffee with worried eyes, while their 8-year-old daughter Emma continued eating her cereal, used to her father's military duties. Dad, do you have to go? Emma asked, her voice small. Ben ruffled her brown hair and kissed the top of her head. Just a drill, sweetheart. I'll be back for dinner. Mary gave him a look that said she knew it was not just a drill. After 12 years of marriage to a colonial defense officer, she could read the signs. Ben grabbed his uniform jacket and kissed her goodbye, not knowing it would be the last time. The defense center was buzzing with activity when Ben arrived. Screens showed dozens of unidentified ships approaching the outer edge of the New Denver system. They were moving fast and in formation, which meant they were not merchants or tourists. Report, Ben ordered as he took his position at the command center. Lieutenant Amy Foster, his second in command, handed him a datapad. 43 ships, mixed classes. They dropped out of hyperspace 30 minutes ago and are heading straight for the colony. No response to our communication attempts. Ben studied the display. The ships were configured for attack, with weapon ports open and shields raised. Whoever they were, they had not come to talk. Send an immediate distress call to Earth Command. Ben ordered. Full priority channels. And get me aligned to the Galactic Council emergency frequency. The next few minutes passed in tense preparation. New Denver's defenses were modest, designed to handle small pirate groups or individual raiders. The colony had never faced a fleet this size. The attacking ships identified themselves 20 minutes before they reached the colony. Their leader spoke in accented Standard Galactic, his voice cold and professional. New Denver Colony, this is Commander Vex of the Shadowclaw Syndicate. You have interfered with our operations for the last time. This is punishment for human arrogance. Ben tried to respond, tried to negotiate, but the communication channel was cut off. The attack began immediately afterward. The pirates did not target military installations first, as Ben had expected. Instead, they focused their fire on civilian areas. Schools, hospitals, residential districts, shopping centers. The orbital defense platforms managed to destroy 6 pirate ships before being overwhelmed. But it was not enough. Ben watched in horror as entire city blocks disappeared under the bombardment. The colony's emergency shelters could only protect a fraction of the population. 2 million people lived on New Denver, and most of them were defenseless against military-grade weapons. His communicator buzzed with a personal message. Mary's voice was frightened, but controlled. Ben, Emma's school was hit. I'm taking her to the medical center shelter. I love you. That was the last message Ben ever received from his wife. The attack lasted 4 hours. When it was over, New Denver looked like a broken toy scattered across the planet's surface. Smoke rose from hundreds of fires. Emergency vehicles raced between collapsed buildings, searching for survivors. Ben stood in the ruins of his command center, his uniform torn and bloody. Lieutenant Foster was dead, killed when the pirates targeted the defense complex. Half of his staff was missing. The other half were either dead or badly wounded. The final casualty count came in 3 days later. 400,000 dead. 600,000 wounded. The medical center where Mary had taken Emma was hit by a direct strike from a plasma cannon. There were no survivors. News of the attack reached Earth within hours through emergency hyperspace communication. Admiral Jake Morrison was in his office when the report came through. He read it twice, unable to believe the numbers. Dr. Lisa Carter was called to an emergency meeting at Earth Defense Headquarters. She arrived to find the building buzzing with activity. Military officers moved through the corridors with grim faces and urgent steps. What's the response from the Galactic Council? Morrison asked when Carter entered his office. Carter's face was pale. Representative Vell called it an unfortunate but minor incident in the Outer Territories. General Kethra suggested that humans should have provided better security for their own colonies. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Through his office window, he could see Earth's sun setting over the ocean. Somewhere out there, families were mourning their dead. Children were orphaned. Lives were destroyed. They called the murder of 400,000 civilians a minor incident, Morrison said slowly. The Vorthan representative actually laughed. Carter added. He said that weak species should expect to suffer losses in the Outer Rim. Morrison opened his desk drawer and pulled out a sealed folder marked with the highest security classifications. Inside were orders that had been written decades ago but never used. The folder contained Protocol 7 authorization codes. Get me President Stone on a secure channel, Morrison ordered. The call took 15 minutes to arrange, with multiple security checks and encryption protocols. When President Amanda Stone appeared on the screen, her face was hard with anger. Mr. President, I'm requesting authorization to implement Protocol 7, Morrison said without introduction. Stone was quiet for a moment. Jake, once we take that step, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. With respect, Mr. President, the galaxy has made it clear how they see us now. 400,000 of our people are dead, and the Galactic Council calls it a minor incident. Stone nodded slowly. You have authorization, Admiral. Full operational capability. No restrictions. After the call ended, Morrison sent a coded message to Director of Operations Rick Santos. The message was simple. Diplomatic solutions have failed. Protocol 7 is authorized. Remove all operational restrictions immediately. Santos received the message at his secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. For 40 years, he had overseen the most classified military project in human history. Hidden factories, secret research stations, and concealed fleets had been built and maintained under his direction. He opened his personal communication system and began sending orders to military commanders across human space. Each message was the same. Authorization granted for full operational capability. Colonel Amy Foster's older brother, Lieutenant Colonel Danny Brooks, received his orders while commanding a routine patrol near the Jupiter system. His ship, the Peaceful Explorer, had been operating under severe restrictions since its launch. The crew knew their vessel was capable of much more than they were allowed to show, but they had never questioned their orders. Until now. All stations. This is the captain, Brooks announced over the ship's communication system. We have received new operational orders. Begin full system activation immediately. Engineer Tony Martinez, who had spent 3 years maintaining systems that were never allowed to run at full power, felt his hands shake as he began the startup sequence. He had dreamed of this moment, wondering what their ship could really do. Captain Steve Parker received similar orders aboard his vessel, New Horizon. To alien observers, his ship looked like a simple cargo freighter. What they did not know was that it carried enough firepower to level a small moon. All across human space, the transformation began. Ships that had hidden their true nature for decades began powering up weapon systems that surpassed anything in the known galaxy. Military bases that had appeared to be simple research stations revealed massive defense networks and construction facilities. On Earth, President Stone addressed the planet in a broadcast that was simultaneously transmitted to every human colony and ship in space. My fellow humans, she began, for 40 years we have chosen the path of peace. We have restrained our capabilities in the hopes of building a better galaxy for all species. We have endured insults, dismissal, and contempt because we believed that patience and diplomacy would eventually prevail. She paused, her eyes hard with determination. The attack on New Denver has shown us that some beings only understand strength. The Galactic Council's response has shown us that our restraint is seen as weakness rather than wisdom. Another pause. The gloves are off. The transformation happened faster than anyone had imagined possible. Within hours of President Stone's broadcast, human ships across the galaxy began revealing their true nature. What the aliens had dismissed as primitive cargo vessels suddenly deployed weapon systems that made their own military ships look like toys. Captain Steve Parker stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching his crew work with an efficiency born from years of hidden preparation. His ship, which alien customs officials had registered as a simple freight hauler, was now showing its true configuration on the main display. Weapons systems fully operational, Captain, reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Julie Nelson. All stealth systems active. Target acquisition systems online. Parker nodded grimly. The target was a Shadowclaw Syndicate base, hidden in an asteroid field near the Vega system. Intelligence reports indicated it was one of their main supply depots, heavily defended and considered impregnable by galactic standards. Engineering, what's our operational status? Parker asked. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez checked his displays with amazement. After 3 years of operating at reduced capacity, His engines were finally running at full power. "Captain, all systems are performing beyond expected parameters. We're operating at 115% of design specifications." What Martinez did not say was that the design specifications themselves had been deliberately understated. The New Horizon was actually capable of much more than even these impressive numbers suggested. The asteroid field appeared on their screens 30 minutes later. The Shadowclaw base was well hidden, built into the largest asteroid and protected by defensive platforms that would challenge most galactic military forces. "Sir, we're detecting 47 defensive installations," reported scanner operator Katie Bell. "They have us on their screens and are powering up weapons." Parker allowed himself a cold smile. "Communications. Open a channel to the base." The response came immediately. A harsh alien voice speaking in broken Standard Galactic. "Unknown vessel. You are in restricted space. Leave immediately or be destroyed." "This is Captain Parker of the Earth vessel New Horizon," Parker replied calmly. "You are harboring terrorists responsible for the murder of human civilians. Surrender immediately." The alien's response was predictable. Mocking laughter followed by threats and insults about human weakness. Parker closed the communication channel. "Weapons, you are authorized to fire." What happened next lasted only 17 seconds. But those 17 seconds changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about human military capability. The New Horizons. Main guns fired with a precision that seemed impossible. Each shot found its target with deadly accuracy, destroying defensive platforms before they could return fire. The asteroids themselves began to break apart under the bombardment, revealing the true size of the hidden base. The Shadowclaw defenders tried to return fire, but their weapons could not penetrate the New Horizons' defensive shields. Energy beams that should have crippled a human vessel simply disappeared against barriers that registered the impacts as minor fluctuations. "Sir, Base Commander is requesting to surrender," reported the communications officer. "Denied," Parker replied. "These are the people who murdered 400,000 civilians on New Denver. There will be no prisoners." The final explosion lit up the asteroid field like a small star. When it faded, there was nothing left of the Shadowclaw base, except expanding clouds of debris and superheated gas. News of the attack spread through galactic communication networks within hours. A footage recorded by automated surveillance drones was viewed by military analysts across known space. What they saw challenged everything they believed about human capabilities. On the Altarian homeworld, Representative Zara Vell watched the recording in her private office. Her blue skin had turned pale, a sign of extreme shock in her species. She had personally inspected human vessels during diplomatic missions and had been certain they were primitive and underpowered. The ship in the recording was clearly human in design, but it fought with capabilities that exceeded the most advanced Altarian warships. The precision of its weapons fire, the strength of its defensive systems, and the speed of its tactical responses were far beyond anything the Galactic Council had ever seen from humanity. General Kethra received the report at his military headquarters on the Vorthan capital world. His compound eyes studied the tactical analysis with growing disbelief. According to his weapons experts, the human vessel had destroyed defensive installations that should have required a full battle fleet to overcome. "This must be some kind of mistake," he told his staff officers. "Humans do not possess this level of technology." His chief intelligence officer, Colonel Vexka, shook her insectoid head. "Sir, we have confirmed the authenticity of the recording. We have also received reports of similar human attacks on Shadowclaw positions throughout the Outer Rim." Kethra studied the data again. If the reports were accurate, humanity had just demonstrated military capabilities that surpassed the combined fleets of the three most powerful galactic civilizations. Admiral Jake Morrison was in his command center on Earth when the reports began coming in. Human ships across the galaxy were engaging Shadowclaw forces with devastating effectiveness. Not a single human vessel had been lost, while entire pirate fleets were being systematically destroyed. Dr. Lisa Carter entered the command center with a communication pad in her hands. Her face showed a mixture of satisfaction and concern. "The Galactic Council is demanding an immediate explanation," she reported. "They want to know where these ships came from and why Earth never revealed their existence." Morrison looked at the tactical displays showing human fleet positions across the galaxy. Red markers indicated completed operations against Shadowclaw targets. There were already more than 50 of them, and the number was growing every hour. "Tell them the truth," Morrison said. "We warned them. We told them repeatedly that humanity was capable of defending itself. They chose not to listen." Carter nodded and began composing her response. The message would be transmitted to every member of the Galactic Council within the hour. Meanwhile, Captain Ben Hayes was standing in the ruins of New Denver, overseeing rescue operations and trying to process his grief. His communicator buzzed with an incoming message from Earth Command. "Captain Hayes, this is Admiral Morrison. I want you to know that the people responsible for the attack on your colony are being dealt with. Every Shadowclaw base, every supply depot, every ship they possess is being systematically eliminated." Ben looked at the wreckage around him, at the places where his wife and daughter had died. "How many of them are there, Admiral?" "Intelligence estimates suggest approximately 200 installations and over 800 vessels," Morrison replied. "As of this morning, we have eliminated 43 installations and 112 vessels. The operation will continue until every trace of the Shadowclaw Syndicate has been removed from the galaxy." Ben felt something he had not experienced since the attack. Hope. Not hope for his family, who were gone forever, but hope that their deaths would not be meaningless. The galactic communication networks were buzzing with reports and speculation. Military analysts from dozens of species were trying to understand how humanity had hidden such advanced capabilities for so long. The implications were staggering. If humans possessed this level of military technology, what else were they hiding? How many other human ships were disguised as civilian vessels? How many human colonies had defensive capabilities far beyond what they appeared to possess? Representative Zara Val found herself facing questions she could not answer. Other Altarian leaders demanded to know how the intelligence services had failed so completely in their assessment of human capabilities. The species that had seemed weak and primitive was suddenly the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. General Kethra was having similar problems with his own government. The Vorthan High Command was demanding explanations for the failure of their military intelligence. How had they missed the existence of an entire fleet of advanced human warships? But the questions and recriminations would have to wait. More reports were coming in every hour, each one more shocking than the last. Human forces were not just destroying Shadowclaw installations. They were doing it with an efficiency and ruthlessness that terrified observers. Captain Danny Brooks led a squadron of 5 human vessels against a major Shadowclaw stronghold in the Centauri system. The base was built into a moon and defended by what the pirates considered an impregnable fortress. The human attack lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, the moon had been cracked in half, and the base was completely destroyed. No escape pods were detected. No survivors were found. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer playing by the old rules. The species that had spent 40 years seeking peaceful solutions had decided that some problems could only be solved through overwhelming force, and they had the capability to apply that force with devastating precision. The war, if it could even be called a war, lasted exactly 73 days. When it was over, the Shadowclaw Syndicate had ceased to exist. Every base had been destroyed, every ship eliminated, every trace of their organization wiped from the whole galaxy. The precision and thoroughness of a human campaign shocked even Earth's own military leaders. Captain Danny Brooks stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the final battle report. His squadron had just finished destroying the last known Shadowclaw installation, a hidden shipyard in the Proxima system that intelligence had only recently discovered. "Sir, that's the end of the target list," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Frank Turner. "All known Shadowclaw assets have been eliminated." Brooks nodded, but he felt no satisfaction in the victory. The numbers were too stark, too one-sided. In 73 days of combat, human forces had destroyed over 300 installations and more than 1,200 enemy vessels. Human losses: 0 ships, 17 wounded personnel, no deaths. It was not warfare. It was extermination. The galactic response was immediate and terrified. Species that had dismissed humanity for decades suddenly found themselves facing the reality that Earth possessed the most advanced military in known space. The carefully hidden truth was finally revealed. Humans had not been struggling to keep up with galactic technology. They had been deliberately holding back. General Kethra of the Vorthan military found himself summoned before his species' high command to explain how their intelligence services had failed so completely. The meeting was held in the ancient chamber of judgment, where military failures had been examined for thousands of years. "General," spoke High Commander Vex Ra, her compound eyes glittering with anger, "explain to this council how humanity managed to hide a military capability that exceeds our own by several orders of magnitude." Kethra's forearms trembled as he accessed his data files. "Honored leaders, our analysis was based on direct observation of human vessels during joint exercises and diplomatic missions. Every scan, every interaction, every piece of evidence suggested that their technology was primitive compared to ours. And yet," interrupted another council member, "these primitive humans just eliminated one of the galaxy's most dangerous criminal organizations in less than 3 months. They did so without losing a single vessel." Kethra had no answer. The footage from human attacks showed weapon systems that surpassed anything in the Vorthan arsenal. Human ships moved with speed and agility that defied conventional understanding of physics. Their defensive systems absorbed attacks that should have destroyed them completely. On the Altarian homeworld, Representative Zara Vel was facing similar questioning from her government. The blue-skinned diplomat who had mocked human capabilities was now being asked to explain how she had failed to recognize the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "The humans deliberately deceived us," she protested to the Altarian Council of Ministers. "They presented themselves as weak and technologically inferior. How could we have known they were hiding such capabilities?" Minister Kalavel, Zara's own cousin, studied the tactical reports with disbelief. "According to these analyses, human weapons technology is at least 2 centuries ahead of our own. Their ship designs incorporate principles that our scientists do not even understand. This level of advancement does not happen overnight." The truth was becoming clear to alien leaders across the galaxy. Humanity had not suddenly developed advanced technology in response to the new Denver attack. They had possessed these capabilities all along and had chosen to hide them for reasons that were now terrifyingly obvious. Dr. Lisa Carter found herself in an unusual position. The xenobiologist who had spent years trying to build bridges between species was now Earth's primary spokesperson for explaining humanity's actions to the galaxy. She stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, facing representatives who looked at her with a mixture of fear and confusion. "Dr. Carter," spoke the crystalline delegate, his transparent body pulsing with nervous energy, "the Council requires an explanation for humanity's deception. Why did your species hide its true capabilities?" Carter looked around the chamber at the alien faces staring back at her. These were the same beings who had mocked her warnings, dismissed her concerns, and treated humanity as a minor player in galactic affairs. "We did not deceive you," she replied calmly. "We warned you repeatedly that humanity was capable of defending itself. We told you that we were restraining our military responses to maintain stability. You chose to interpret our restraint as weakness." General Kethra's translator conveyed his clicking response. "Dr. Carter, restraint implies the voluntary limitation of existing capabilities. Your species implied that you possessed modest defensive abilities, not military technology that surpasses every other known civilization." Carter smiled coldly. "General, with respect, we told you exactly what we were doing. The failure of your intelligence services to understand the implications of our statements is not our responsibility." The council chamber erupted in angry voices and defensive posturing. Representatives who had spent decades looking down on humanity were now confronting the fact that they had completely misjudged the situation. Admiral Jake Morrison was monitoring the council session from his headquarters on Earth. The diplomatic discussions were important, but they were not his primary concern. He was more interested in the intelligence reports coming from across the galaxy. "Sir," reported his aide, Commander Helen Garcia, "we're detecting massive military buildups by several major powers. The Vorthans are mobilizing their home fleet. The Altarians are recalling vessels from exploration missions. The Crystalline Assembly is activating reserve formations." Morrison studied the tactical displays showing alien fleet movements. Fear was driving the other species to prepare for conflict, even though Earth had shown no hostile intentions toward anyone except the Shadowclaw pirates. "They think we're going to attack them," Morrison realized. "Can you blame them, sir?" Garcia asked. "From their perspective, humanity just revealed military capabilities that dwarf their own. They have to assume we have hostile intentions." Morrison considered the situation carefully. Earth's leaders had known this moment would come eventually. The decision to hide humanity's true capabilities had always been temporary. Eventually, the truth would be revealed, and the galaxy would have to adjust to a new balance of power. The question was how to manage that adjustment without starting a galactic war. President Amanda Stone addressed this concern in her next broadcast. To the human population, the message was simultaneously transmitted to every alien government in the galaxy, ensuring that Earth's intentions were clearly understood. Fellow humans, and to the leaders of all galactic civilizations who are monitoring this transmission, Stone began, "I want to address the concerns that have arisen following our recent military actions." She paused to look directly into the camera, her expression serious but not threatening. "Earth has no hostile intentions toward any peaceful species. Our actions against the Shadowclaw Syndicate were a response to their unprovoked attack on our civilians. We have eliminated this threat completely, and we consider the matter closed." Another pause. "However, the galaxy must understand that the old assumptions about humanity's place in galactic affairs are no longer valid. We will not return to the previous situation, where human concerns were dismissed and human lives were considered expendable." The president's words were carefully chosen, but their meaning was unmistakable. Humanity was claiming its place as a major galactic power, and other species would need to adjust their attitudes accordingly. Engineer Tony Martinez was working in his engine room when the significance of recent events finally hit him. For 3 years, he had maintained systems that were never allowed to operate at full capacity. He had followed orders without question, trusting that his superiors knew what they were doing. Now he understood. Earth's leaders had been preparing for this moment for decades. Every human ship, every weapon system, every piece of technology had been designed to far exceed the capabilities they displayed. The deception had been complete and systematic. "Sir," called his assistant. "Incoming. Message from Earth Command." Martinez read the message with growing amazement. It was a technical briefing on new systems that were being declassified for human military use. Weapons, engines, defensive systems, and technologies that made their current capabilities look primitive by comparison. The revelation was staggering. What the galaxy had just witnessed was not humanity's full military potential. It was merely the first glimpse of what Earth could do when the restrictions were removed. Captain Steve Parker received similar briefings aboard the New Horizon. His ship, which had just demonstrated the ability to single-handedly destroy a fortified pirate base, was apparently one of the older and less advanced vessels in the human fleet. "Captain," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving deployment orders for the new Titan-class vessels." Parker had heard rumors about the Titan-class ships, but had never seen one. According to the specifications in his new orders, each Titan-class vessel carried more firepower than his entire squadron. The galaxy was about to learn that the Shadowclaw campaign had been conducted using less than 5% O. 6 months after the last Shadowclaw base was destroyed, the galaxy looked very different. The old power structures that had dominated galactic politics for centuries were crumbling, replaced by a new reality that no one had been prepared for. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the newly revealed flagship, Terra's Pride, watching the construction of humanity's first major shipyard in the galactic core. The massive structure was being built in the neutral zone between the Altarian and Vorthan territories, a location that sent a clear message about Earth's new role in galactic affairs. The Terra's Pride itself was a statement of human capabilities. The ship was 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to sterilize a planet. More importantly, it was one of 12 identical vessels that had been under construction in hidden shipyards for the past 20 years. "Sir, the Altarian delegation is requesting permission to come aboard," reported Captain Frank Turner, the ship's commanding officer. Morrison nodded. "Grant permission. Have them escorted to Conference Room Alpha." The Altarian delegation was led by Representative Zara Vell, the same diplomat who had mocked human capabilities just months earlier. Her blue skin had lost much of its natural luster, a sign of the stress she had been under since the revelation of humanity's true strength. "Admiral Morrison," she began formally, "the Altarian Empire wishes to discuss the establishment of mutual defense agreements with Earth." Morrison studied the alien diplomat carefully. 6 months ago, she had dismissed human concerns about pirate attacks as unimportant. She had laughed at warnings about humanity's hidden capabilities. Now she was begging for protection. "Representative Vell, Earth is interested in building positive relationships with all peaceful species," Morrison replied diplomatically. "However, such relationships must be based on mutual respect and equal treatment." Zara Vell's translator conveyed her words with obvious difficulty. "Admiral, the Altarian Empire recognizes that our previous assessments of human capabilities were incomplete. We wish to correct this misunderstanding." The conversation continued for an hour, but the outcome was predetermined. The Altarians, like every other major galactic power, were now desperate to avoid conflict with humanity. The species that had once considered themselves the masters of the galaxy were now seeking Earth's protection. Dr. Lisa Carter was in her new office aboard the Terra's Pride, reviewing the dozens of similar requests that had arrived in recent weeks. The Crystalline Assembly wanted trade agreements. The Vorthan Confederation was offering military cooperation. Even minor species that had never acknowledged human existence were suddenly eager to establish diplomatic relations. The transformation was complete. In less than a year, humanity had gone from being dismissed as a primitive backwater species to being recognized as the dominant military power in the galaxy. The change was so dramatic that many alien governments were still struggling to accept it. Captain Ben Hayes had been promoted to colonel and given command of the new Denver Memorial Fleet. 12 advanced warships dedicated to protecting human colonies in the Outer Rim. He stood in the rebuilt city center of New Denver, watching children play in the memorial park built where his own family had died. The park was beautiful, with flowing water and carefully tended gardens. But Ben knew what lay beneath the peaceful surface. New Denver was now one of the most heavily defended locations in human space, protected by weapon systems that could destroy an attacking fleet before it reached the outer system. "Sir," reported his aide, "the quarterly security briefing is ready for your review." Ben took the data pad and scanned the information. No pirate attacks in the Outer Rim for 4 months. No unidentified ships detected in human space. No threats to any human installation anywhere in the galaxy. The message had been received. After the complete destruction of the Shadow Claw Syndicate, no criminal organization was willing to risk attacking human targets. The price of that aggression had been made devastatingly clear. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Amanda Stone was meeting with her science advisors about humanity's next revelation. The military capabilities that had shocked the galaxy were impressive, but they were not Earth's most significant secret. Dr. Kevin Walsh, the head of Earth's Terraforming Research Division, presented his latest report to the President's Council. "Madam President, we have perfected the process for rapid planetary transformation. We can now convert a dead world into a garden paradise in 18 months. The implications were staggering. While other species struggled to find habitable worlds and spent decades adapting hostile environments, humanity could create new worlds with ease. The technology existed to transform the galaxy into a paradise of inhabited systems." "How many worlds could we process simultaneously?" asked the President. "With current resources, approximately 50 worlds per year," Walsh replied. "If we expand the program, we could potentially transform every uninhabited world in the galaxy within a century." Stone considered the political implications. Terraforming technology would make humanity even more valuable as an ally and even more dangerous as an enemy. Species that controlled only a few habitable worlds would be completely dependent on human goodwill for expansion. Engineer Tony Martinez received new assignments that reflected this reality. His expertise with advanced human technology was now in high demand, not just for military applications, but for the massive construction projects that were beginning across human space. Martinez, called Captain Steve Parker, were being reassigned to the Perseus project. Martinez looked up from his engineering console with curiosity. The Perseus project was one of the most classified operations in human space, involving the construction of something so large that it required an entire star system to house it. "What exactly are we building out there, Captain?" Martinez asked. Parker smiled grimly. "The future, engineer. We're building the future." The truth about the Perseus project would not be revealed for another year, but its existence was already changing galactic politics. Intelligence services from dozens of species were desperately trying to learn what humanity was constructing in the distant Perseus system. The scale of the project suggested capabilities beyond anything previously imagined. General Kethra of the Vorthan military had been demoted and reassigned to border patrol duties after his failures during the Shadowclaw crisis. His replacement, General Yexka, was taking a very different approach to human relations. "Sir, our intelligence suggests that human military capabilities exceed our initial estimates by a factor of at least 10, reported Colonel Yexka. The ships they used against the Shadowclaw Syndicate appear to be their older, less advanced vessels. Yexka studied the reports with growing concern. If the information was accurate, humanity possessed enough military power to conquer the entire galaxy if they chose to do so. The fact that they had not done so was the only thing preventing mass panic among the galactic powers. "What are options, Colonel?" Yexka asked. "Frankly, sir, Our only option is to remain on humanity's good side, Vexgar replied. Any attempt at military confrontation would be suicidal. Similar conversations were taking place in government buildings across the galaxy. Military leaders who had spent their careers preparing for conflicts between roughly equal powers were now facing the reality of dealing with a species that possessed overwhelming superiority. Ambassador Helen Garcia, Earth's new representative to the reformed Galactic Council, was tasked with managing these concerns. Her job was to convince nervous alien governments that humanity's intentions were peaceful, while making it clear that human interests would be respected. Representatives, she addressed the Council, Earth seeks cooperation, not domination. We have demonstrated our military capabilities only to eliminate a terrorist threat. We have no desire to rule the galaxy. The crystalline delegate's body pulsed with nervous energy as he responded. Ambassador Garcia, while we appreciate these assurances, the disparity in capabilities creates an inherent imbalance. How can we maintain sovereignty when humanity possesses such overwhelming advantages? Garcia's response was carefully prepared. Representative, sovereignty is maintained through mutual respect and adherence to agreed principles. Earth is willing to sign treaties guaranteeing the independence of all peaceful species. However, these agreements must be reciprocal. The unspoken message was clear. Humanity would respect alien sovereignty as long as human interests were respected in return. The days of dismissing human concerns or treating human lives as expendable were over forever. Captain Danny Brooks was commanding one of the new exploration fleets tasked with finding suitable worlds for humanity's expansion. His ships carried not just advanced sensors and communication equipment, but also the terraforming technology that could transform any marginal world into a paradise. Sir, we've located another candidate system, reported his science officer. 3 potentially habitable worlds, currently uninhabited. Brooks nodded and marked the system for detailed survey. Within 5 years, those worlds could be home to millions of humans. The galaxy was vast, and humanity was finally ready to claim its place among the stars. The transformation was accelerating. Every month brought new revelations about human capabilities, new demonstrations of technologies that other species could barely